What about sleep? How important is sleep for longevity?
I would guess, based on the evidence, that it's really important. And because we don't know for sure. But what we know from animal studies is the following. If you restrict sleep from a rat for just 2 weeks, it'll develop type 2 diabetes. It's that important. So that's the main thing. What we also know is at the molecular level that if you disrupt your sleep-wake cycle, so we actually have proteins that go up and down that control our sleep-wake. All of us, most of our cells do that. If you disrupt that, you'll get premature aging. And guess what? The opposite is true. That as you get older, that cycle, the amplitude becomes diminished. And this is why it's harder to get to sleep as you get older, and then you got all sorts of problems. And I think what's going on is there's a positive feedback loop, which is a disaster in your old age, which is, right, you're aging. You can't, at this moment, totally prevent that. And then it's disrupting your sleep, then you get not enough sleep, and then that's going to accelerate your aging process. And so it's known that people who are shift workers are more susceptible to certain age-related diseases. So your bottom line, you definitely want to work on that. It's one of the reasons I have this ring on my finger, which helps me optimize my sleep and learn what I do the day before if it was a bad idea, and I'll stop doing that, like eating a fried chicken.
I see you're still carrying the burdens of that decision. But sleep is one of those things that's making me wonder about the variability between humans a little bit, and how science is often focused on, like, it's not often focused on high performers in a particular way. And it's looking at the aggregate versus the individual cases. For example, like for me, I don't know what the exact hours are, but like power naps are incredible. I tend to look at the metric of stress and happiness and joy and try to optimize those. So decreasing stress, increasing happiness, and using sleep as just one of the tools to do that. Because like hitting the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hour mark, or whatever the correct mark is, I find that to be stress inducing for me versus stress relieving. Like thinking about that, I feel best if I sleep sometimes for 8 hours, sometimes for 4 hours, and then power nap. And then as long as I have a stupid, in private usually, smile on my face, that's when I'm doing good, as opposed to getting a perfect amount of sleep. According to whatever the latest blog post is. And I also pull all-nighters still. I also think there's something about the body, like as long as you do it regularly, it's not as stress-inducing. Like you know what it is. The reason I pull all-nighters isn't for like I'm playing Diablo 3 or something, is because I'm doing something I'm truly passionate about. Well, I'm also love video games, but I'm doing something I'm truly passionate about. And it's almost like there's the Jocko Willink feeling of when I'm up at 7 a.m. and I haven't slept all night and still am working on it. There's a kind of a celebration of the human spirit that I really enjoy it. And that's happiness. And to sort of then, and I usually don't tell that kind of stuff to people because their first statement will be like, you should get more sleep. It's like, no, I'm doing stuff I love. You should get more love in your life, bro.
That's right.
So, but that said, in aggregate, when you look at the full span of life, it's probably you should be getting a consistent amount of sleep. And it seems like it's in that 7-8 hour range.
Yeah, but it's similar to food. It's the quality, not the quantity, right? And when you get it. So I look at my data pretty often, and what makes a difference to me is not the amount of hours, but the quality, the depth, and the deep sleep is what'll do it. So if I have a lot of alcohol before going to sleep, and I can see my heart rate being different, but what really kills me is that I don't get a lot of that deep sleep, and I wake up, barely remembering stuff. So that, like you say, if you're happy and contented and don't have these cortisol chemicals going through your body, you will more naturally get into that deep state. And even if you just get 4 hours, way better than 8 hours of none of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And some of that could be genetic. For me, I fall asleep like this. If you want me to fall asleep right now, I can do it. It's no, I have no problem with it. Combined with coffee, I just had 2 energy drinks. I can probably sleep. So that, I don't know if that's genetics or it's kind of I don't know what it is, or maybe that I don't have kids and I'm single, so I don't have. I'm almost listening to some kind of biological signal versus societal signal on when I'm supposed to go to sleep. So I just go to sleep whenever I feel like going to sleep.
Well, that's because you're self-employed.
Self-employed.
Most people don't have that luxury, but we're lucky, the two of us, that we can make our own hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super important. And those people who have the shift work, I mean, they really need to change the way that works, because they're literally killing those people.
Is there something you can say about the mind and stress in terms of the effect on longevity? Sort of, because I don't know if you think about it this way, but when you talk about the biological machine, it's always these mechanisms that are not necessarily directly connected to the brain or the operation of the brain. Like, what's the role about stress and happiness and the sort of higher cognitive things going on in the brain on longevity?
Right. Well, that's a great point. The brain is the center for longevity. Actually, we do know that. First off, when I'm stressed, I can see, mentally stressed, then I can see it in my body. Mm-hmm. Heart rate, hormones. It's clear. That's no true surprise. So you've got to work on your brain first and foremost. If you are totally freaked out, agitated all the time, you will live shorter. I'm certain of it. I keep fish. I'm a big aquarium guy, and you can see the difference between the fish that's having a good time and dominant, and the one that gets picked on.
Yeah,
it just looks like crap. Right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be the little fish getting picked on if you can help it. So I used to be extremely stressed as a kid. I was a perfectionist, very shy, always worried about being a failure. If I didn't get an A+, I was crying in my bedroom, that kind of sad existence. I got into my 20s, then in my 30s, and realized that's not the way to live. So I've worked very hard to get to this point where I almost never get stressed. Never. There's nothing that I've never gotten angry in my lab. I've got 20 kids. Sometimes it's most of the time it's like a kindergarten. I haven't lost my temper. I'm very calm, but that's intentional. And I don't worry about stuff. Millions of dollars, billions of dollars at stake sometimes. Keep it cool. It's only life. We're all headed to the same place anyway. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it. But to answer your question, I think in a better way, if you manipulate the brain of an animal, I'll give you an example. If we turn on this SERT gene that I mentioned, SERT1, a good friend of mine at WashU, Sheena Mai, did this. They upregulated that gene just in the neurons of the animal. It lived longer. So that's sufficient to extend lifespan. We also know that you can manipulate the part of the brain called the hypothalamus, which leaches a lot of chemicals into the body and proteins, most of which we don't know yet. But just changing the inflammation of that little organ or part of the brain is sufficient to make animals live longer as well. So get your brain in order first before you tackle anything else, I would say.